rolling with my 5.0 from the rag top down. So
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I figured that was your inspiration. You sure this is your last chance to do the Trump thing? You sure you don't want to do the Trump thing? We only want to make arrows great again.
Make arrows great again. Yeah.
But only American-made ones. Oh man. So all right. So you're going antelope hunting in Idaho.
All right.
Like, what are you using?
Fast, man. You got to shoot fast and flat in that scenario.
Is that one of the instances where you might sacrifice durability in your brain? I know it is for me.
Maybe, but I mean, I can get this arrow to easily 300 feet per second. As a short draw guy, like that's fine for me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd probably set up some 5.0s, or if I was really wanting to get crazy, maybe some X10 parallel pros. Mm-hmm. Cuts through the wind a little better. But yeah, I'm gonna want to be fast and flat. And
do you have a factor for cutting through the wind on diameter? Is there like a numeric that they have behind that?
I know there is. Yeah. Me, the sales guy, don't have that.
That's more of an engineer question. Yeah, but they don't speak fun.
No, I speak fun.
No, you speak fun. Engineers.
I don't speak engineering, but I speak fun.
I've had some of the most awkward conversations with engineers over the years. It's like, wow, why am I talking to you?
Honestly, I will say our engineering department, really good guys, really personal guys. They love the sport. I mean, they are passionate bow hunters. For they don't fit the bill for what you would take from your regular engineer, honestly.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I've had
no offense to the engineers
in this industry. I've definitely had quite a gamut of engineers. There's like engineers, and I'm a bow hunter, but I'm also an engineer.
Right.
And there's a distinguishing difference there. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Hybrids, you don't need to do that. I only need them on this.
Do you never use them on this at all? On these at all?
You're not supposed to need them on hybrids.
All right. Well, let's rock.
Yeah, you're straight through. These ones you got to prime.
I know they said they put a primer in.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the beauty of the hybrid material. You're supposed to be able to use any glue you want. No prep, no nothing. Just stick it on and go.
Well, that's why, in production, they've worked very nice for us.
Oh, yeah.
All of our match grade arrows come fletched with the Hybrid 26, mm-hmm. and we haven't had any adhesion issues.
No, you shouldn't. Those things it's hard to screw up gluing that arrow on. It really is.
So, yeah, I think, Antelope, Idaho, I'm going fast. I'm going fast and flat.
Yeah. What kind of broadhead? Mechanical or fixed?
I like mechanicals, man. I like that they fly easy. They just fly well. I'd probably use like a 2-inch cut and let her rip.
Cool. All right, well, let's step it up a little bit. Let's go Midwest Whitetail. What would you use for Midwest Whitetail? And I should probably quantify. I would use the lightest thing I can get my hands on for antelope. Light. I think I was shooting, oh man, I want to say I was shooting like 360 feet a second.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like a 80-something pound bow with like 360 grain arrows.
God, man, I'd like to see an arrow like that fly. I don't think I've ever seen an arrow go
Oh,
that
it flies. They
wow.
do. They really do. And the funny part of that is that whole built arrow still had 15% FOC.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's still led largely by the front of the arrow, so when it hits something, it should track relatively straight.
Well, you have the benefit of long draw.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 30 and a half.
I got
a little stretch out in there.
Yeah, so I've even on something super light, I might hit 310, mm-hmm. 315. I could see, but Midwest Whitetail, I know what you'll say. I'm going with.
Well, no, we should quantify. All right. So for Midwest whitetail hunting, we're probably sitting in a tree stand or a tower blind or a ground blind, and it's probably a 20 to 25 yard shot, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah?
Frankly, I just don't think it's responsible to shoot much further than that on whitetail. They react so quick. It's just
so let's say it's 25 yards and in.
I'm gonna shoot an FMJ.
Like a classic or the new one?
I'd probably shoot the FMJ, the new FMJ with some weight up front. The FMJ Max. I can get up to, so keeping the weight constant with the classic, mm-hmm. I can get. I think I was at like 11.8 FOC before with like a 450 grain arrow build. Mm-hmm. Where with the FMJ Max, I think I was just shy of 16% with mm-hmm. the exact same weight. Mm-hmm. And that's probably what I'd do. I'd go a little heavier, but I'd load the weight up front, mm-hmm. and I'd probably still use a mechanical. I like a mechanical head. I'd use a hybrid.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, they're a good way to go. So your total arrow weight's around 450-ish in that scenario?
In that scenario,
In
yes.
that scenario. So this is going to surprise you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making me shoot 25 yards and in, and I'm in a controlled environment like that, I would probably shoot the same thing.
Ah, interesting.
I really would.
I thought your default. I thought you were like.
Well, almost everything's gonna be so, but a lot of that's based off of distance, right? So I'm a really big advocate for the farther away that you're shooting, the lighter your arrow should be, so they have less time to react. Because the time from shot to reaction just it increases exponentially as that arrow slows down. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm real big on most of the stuff I shoot is at distance.
Yeah.
So that's largely why I'm very, very, very lightweight arrow. I shot a bear from that kind of environment like 2 years ago, and I used a 500 or 475 grain setup, which is heavy for me, right?
It is.
But in this exact situation, I would, for sure, if I know I'm 25 yards and in, there is something to that metal exterior on tissue. Like I've noticed it in years past because I did use classic FMJs a long time ago.
Yeah.
It is just really slick. You get it just slightly wet, and it seems to penetrate like better. Everything else being equal. So because you've gone down to that lighter weight, because I mean a 300 is like 10.4.
Yeah.
That's not horrible.
Not at all.
It's not horrible.
Not at all.
So and
it doesn't take much weight up front to really get your FOC up either.
So as long as what I built ended up giving me at least 15%, I'd probably be fine with it and say, yeah, it's probably a good Midwest. But I don't do a ton of that hunting. I do some, but I don't do a ton of it. So I would build it with that intent and for that purpose. And I definitely, I'd still be using a mechanical. I wouldn't switch away from a mechanical until I got to a really large animal, and even then I might not.
Yeah.
Depending on, I might just be more particular about which mechanical I used.
I like the consistent arrow flight, and it's just one less thing to worry about. Mm-hmm. Of if it flies as close to my field points as possible, it's just one less thing to worry about when I'm hunting.
I am an advocate for a guy shooting a fixed blade broadhead first, and making sure it's hitting relatively close to your field point before you just shoot mechanical, because it's a proof of tune. Yeah. It really is, because at the end of the day, if you can get a broadhead and a field point to hit in the same spot at a reasonable difference, your bow is tuned. And if they don't, your bow is not tuned correctly for that configuration.
There are a lot of people, though, and I'm one of them, frankly. I mean, I don't tune my own bow, and I think as a good default, if you don't have the time to do it, if you're concerned about it, it's just, it's one less thing to worry about. I like to be in the field. I mean, even my gear, like my dad and brother, their bino harness has got radios strapped to it, and this and that. I'm just like, they're like, why don't you do that? Like every time I'm putting it in my pocket, if I'm going to run a wire up, I'm going to run it through my shirt. And they've got this system all pre-done, and I'm like, I don't want anything. The one moment I'm waking up at 3 a.m, I'm hiking 10 miles. All of the things I'm doing are for that 3 seconds that I get to draw my bow, hopefully, and get a shot. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to do anything with a bino harness, with a heavy backpack. Mm-hmm. Half the time I carry my bag in and drop it, and I'm just with a fanny pack, because I don't want that one moment that I have to now get my backpack stuck on things, making a bunch of noise. Sure. So whether it's my gear or my arrow, I'm uber obsessed of that one moment of opportunity that I get. I want to be completely prepped for that.
No, that makes perfect sense, man. I get that.
I even get spun up talking about it. Could you sense it?
I felt the level of passion. I mean, don't get me wrong. You're a passionate guy in your conversations and your discussions, but you can tell that's a key sticking point for you. Yeah. It's not just something you believe in. It's something you believe in and are incredibly passionate toward. And that says a lot about you. All right, so let's say Alaskan black bear.
Oh, gee. Out of my price range.
Big black bear. No, it's not. That's not expensive. That's a pretty cheap hunt.
All right.
No, black bear. Like grizzly or brown bear, sure.
Yeah,
that's expensive. No, Alaskan black bear. Still trying to be the average guy, reasonable things. So we're talking probably a 400 plus pound black bear. Mm-hmm. What do you use?
I'd probably go with the 5.0. I'd probably go with a similar setup that I do with elk. I mean, I haven't killed a lot of. I've killed 2 bears, one in Idaho, one in Saskatchewan. I personally, in my experience, haven't found them to be overly tough. Mm-hmm. I guess.
They're honestly, they might be the most penetration wise in my experience, because I've probably killed 20 bears.
Well, yeah, just looking around. I mean, there's bears all over the place.
On a lot of those mountains. Well, we're around bears around here, right? It's something common. They're not like their skin's super thin. Like their hair's long, so their skin isn't as thick, and it's a very easy animal to penetrate.
Yeah.
Like if you hit the socket or something, you might struggle to penetrate, but outside of that, you don't need a heavy. I've never seen a scenario where I felt like a heavy arrow was really going to help me on that one personally.
Yeah, so I'd probably just set it up similar I would, an elk setup. I'd go with 340 5.0s. I'd run a hit and a collar. I'd be shooting it fast. And frankly, bear hunting, I did shoot it. My first bear was at 55 yards. It was up in Idaho. Mm-hmm. I was actually sitting on a buddy of mine's rifle bait and shot it at 55 yards. And then the second bear, I think, was like 15 yards in Saskatchewan. So, right. I mean, and both of them. I mean, it's a pretty quick thing finding a bear. So, be the move I did. I'd probably still shoot it. I shot them both with mechanical heads. I shot the one with I think it was I believe the first one was a fixed head because it was in Idaho back before they switched the law over.
Yeah, you had to use it.
But the second one in Saskatchewan was mechanical.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. All right, let's step it up a little bit. Okay, still not an entirely unreasonable hunt. Alaskan migrating caribou.
Oh yeah.
So some distance probably.
Yeah. A
little bit bigger animal, probably pretty deep, reasonably thick hide.
Windy up there?
Probably, I'd assume.
Yeah. I think if I'm going on a hunt like that, I'm just gonna set up some X10 parallel pros. I don't know. I mean, there's a certain confidence level. I've loved that arrow. I've had good luck with it. Mm-hmm. I like the micro diameter, the 4 mil for the wind. Heck, isn't it light pretty much all day? So maybe the lighted knock's a little less crucial. You're not having low light situations so much. Yeah. Which is where I really like 5 mil because there's some good lighted knock options.
Great lighted knock. If you want to use a lighted knock, you probably ought to stick with 5 mil or bigger.
Yeah. And what is it? I mean, I've actually never put them on 4. What is it that guys don't like about 4 mil lighted knocks?
They're fragile.
Just durability.
Like those Ultraview arrows, right? They have that little bushing in it. And I installing lighted knocks on 6 arrows, I broke 2.
No kidding.
I broke them.
Just installing?
Just trying to install them.
Wow.
Because they're so tight, because they're trying to take this battery and have it in the knock collar area.
Right, so you don't end up with a lot of material there.
Yeah, you end up making it relatively fragile. So I've yet to see a 4 millimeter lighted knock that is anywhere near as durable as a 5.
And a knock failure. I mean, if you're hiking, walking around, and you look down, you got 4 arrows in your quiver, and 2 of them, you bumped into something, and I don't know, it gets cold or whatever, and you start breaking an ear off.
They're not quite that bad.
Yeah,
but
it's one less thing to worry about, I guess.
When I've seen failures, I mean, over the years, I've used a decent amount of 4 millimeter stuff, whether it's with a bushing or a straight arrow insert, and man. When I've had failure rates, it's almost always been on 4 millimeter size lighted knocks, not 5 millimeters. So I have seen some 5 millimeter lighted knock failures, but by and large, it's the safer bet if you're going to shoot lighted knocks. All right, Alaskan, I would definitely shoot a 5.0. I definitely shoot that arrow, and I would be as light as I could possibly be while still shooting something that I feel like is durable. I'd probably go with the mechanical because it's typically going to shoot better downrange. I'd like the 1.5 hybrid Sever or Grim Reaper Fatal Steel in 100 with the smaller cutting diameter.
They make a good head, and really Matt Bateman from Grim Reaper is a stud. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, dude, I have his cell phone. We talk all the time.
And a killer, man.
He is a massive killer.
Holy cow!
But I really like that Broadhead from them. It is the only one they offer that's completely steel. All the other ones have aluminum in them to some degree. Okay. And they're a smaller cutting diameter Broadhead, which in a mechanical, I like a smaller cutting diameter.
What does it weigh?
It's 100 or 125.
Okay, so you can get it. I was wondering if in the steel, all of a sudden it jumped up to like 125.
No, it's just a smaller ferrule when you look at it. It doesn't look like all their other ones.
What's interesting in the Broadhead world that I've heard, the Broadhead guys talk about is they wish people would switch to all 125s and 150s because it would really open up the capability of what 100%. They can make. And you make your own components too, so you probably understand that world, better than I. But they're all like, if we could move the market to like 125 and 150s. And when I started, it was 85s. Right. I started with Thunderhead 85s. I still killed more stuff with Thunderhead 85s than probably anything else.
Of course.
I don't even. know if they still make them, frankly.
But Tyson, that's a direct correlation to the GPI availability of an arrow.
Absolutely.
They're trying to get the weight down to the speed up, right? So by making more options that are lighter, you are making 125 to 150 way more viable. And I can tell you right now, we sell way more 125 grain broadheads now than we used to. And that didn't change until we really started pushing lighter GPI arrows. Then you're like, okay, well, I can add another 25 grains to the front. We're pushing, FOC anyway.
Yeah.
And making good componentry that isn't super heavy. Oh, I gotta turn that one more. Oops.
You jumped the gun?
Yeah, I did. Let me find that one. But yeah, since we started doing that, we've seen way more heavier weight choices come through. Way more. So it's a correlation to weight. So by offering something like this that still, it makes it through all your vigorous testing that you won't share.
Yeah.
we share off camera? Kind of.
Maybe.
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 That's what I'm talking about.
I think we have an NDA.
I'll sign whatever you want. I've signed it before, but I'll re-sign it. That's fine. But yeah, it opens up so many more doors of options and opportunities, right? You don't necessarily have to put 75 grains of an insert in front of your arrow to get that FOC. Yeah. You can put 50 in front and go to a 125. Well, because you got more mass to deal with for strength.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It's huge.
I was gonna say, I think that would be the argument is why stack it in other areas when you can put it into durability of a head, but. Right.
And as long as they're not making the head like excessively longer, they're just making it thicker or tougher. Yeah.
You don't want that length.
You get longer, and then you get more variance in flight, and it's more likely to drift more in the wind. Just the surface area is tough.
Well, it's one of the things with a half out, right, that you got to be really conscious of is any sort of a tweak in aligning when you're, if you are shooting half outs, that needs to be aligned with your arrow.
Right.
Right. And we have a new actually match grade component for the 5.0 that is a half out with that zero tolerance fitment ring that makes sure that now as that half out goes out, like it's aligned perfectly with the arrows. You don't get that front end wobble.
I can't argue with how great of an idea that was. Whoever thought that up in there is brilliant because you always have some tolerance inside there, and you can't make that tolerance up with metal or it won't fit. You'll get a little variance in an arrow size and all of a sudden it won't go anymore. But if you put a little rubber gasket on there. So these are, this is a really very intelligent idea, honestly. Like
Dylan takes the credit for that.
I wish I thought of it. I did not. It was a great idea. I mean, this sort of alignment system and collar over with a long shank internal is going to give you great alignment. But this is going to force it to be in the middle every time. Like this is... I haven't had any of these go on crooked ever. Even when the arrow's not cut perfect, it still helps keep it track.
Well, and you are supposed to use that, here, I'm going to grab the one you opened already.
Sanding tool.
I'm just going to do it for the sake of for example, but you do want to use that little chamfer stone. Otherwise, you may tear that O-ring. Oh, okay. But
I've ran into that before when we were putting on like O-ring field points and whatnot. If you don't chamfer the edge of that, it'll shave the O-ring off when you're putting the field point in on a hit.
But I mean, just for the sake of, it's hard to depict on camera, but when it's snug, little bit of a wiggle.
Yeah.
It's going to shave that little excess on. Yeah. I mean, the peace of mind that gives me of like, okay, that's a nice fitment.
Yeah. The first time I went to put one of those on, I thought I was going to break it. So I was like, this isn't the right size.
Yeah.
And yeah, it fits incredibly snug, but there's still room for glue. Yep. So you still get good adhesion. I mean, it's like out of the standard manufactured componentry available from an arrow manufacturer, this is the best one I've ever seen.
Well, and I think, that was a big push that we had. We wanted to kind of lead the game on that. I mean, guys like, you see it with the cells on your components. Right. Guys like...
Yeah.
Components. I mean, it's a hot thing in archery right now for sure.
Yeah. No, it's phenomenal, man. It's good stuff. Like it's a really good system. All right, so let's see. Next, how about well, you're from Utah, so let's say Utah mule deer. What would you use?
5.0. 5.0. That's what I'll be hunting with moving forward. Fast flat.
Yeah. So I like to say we're setting a trend where he primarily was going to use the lighter weight arrow.
I'm a little biased. I dreamt up the name of 5.0, so I'm...
Were you thinking of Vanilla Ice back in the day? Was that what it was? Another receiver here. What's that line in that? I've been trying to think of it since I saw 5.0. It's like...
I don't even know.
Oh, yeah, and Ice Ice Baby. Rolling with my 5.0 from the rag top down. So
okay. Yeah.
I figured that was your inspiration.
No, The Mustang 5.0, I don't know. It's fast. It's a cool car. And I mean, it explains what it is, right?
Yeah, it identifies that it's a 5mm
Yeah.
arrow, but it's
And
something different than what the 5mm is already
I
called.
think at some point, you start dreaming up names in archery, and at what point has everything been used? And
Right.
it's almost.
Well, I'm a big advocate when you're talking about modeling things of that nature, that you're modeling verbiage, whether it's a business or a product or whatnot. It should somewhat identify what it is that the average person
For
can
sure.
go, oh yeah, that.
Yeah.
That sticks, right? Just no different than like my archery shops are named after their locations.
As they should be.
And that they say archery in the title.
As it should.
Hey, why wouldn't you do that? You're telling the customer what you're doing and where you are in
Yeah.
the title. So by saying it's an Easton 5.0, it's telling them the diameter.
Knows what it is.
But it's not. It doesn't just say 5, right? So it's like, okay, why does it say 5.0?
Yep.
And that gives you a little bit of indicator there's something different about it. Like it's a very smart name. Whoever was suggesting the other thing, which I won't say, was being foolish.
How do you build your arrow exactly? Like what's if I mean, I assume after you beating me up on getting a lightweight 5mm shaft, I assume you'll be shooting this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
If so, how are you going to build them up?
I would build them with a left helical, because everything I've ever built and tried, my arrow turns to the left naturally when it comes out of the bow, so I don't see the point in trying to fight it. I'm not sure on vanes yet. I'm still playing with a bunch of different ones. I did a lot of DCA minis. Is
that what you're trying there?
That's what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had really good luck with them.
They're cool.
They seem to fly good, and they're not loud, but they're not super stiff, and I think that's part of why they're not loud. They seem to recover good. Like I said, good luck with them. I back my vanes up pretty much as far as I comfortably can, because that helps with stability, especially on the more you shorten the arrow. And light, I'll run the weight I need to make 15% in the front and stop. In most instances, whether that's a 125 grain field point and a lighter component, or a slightly heavier component and 100 grain, depending on the broadhead picks.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying different broadheads. I'm always shooting different broadheads, So, but yeah, I absolutely will run that arrow, no question, for almost everything I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what insert are you gonna run?
Oh, mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I make titanium components, and
Sure.
I'm working on another rendition of them. So I'm not sure if they'll be done in time to start using them, but I put 50 grain titaniums in the other ones I got from you.
Cool.
That I've been using and been happy with. But I have something, like, ironically, when you look at my titanium insert and the collar that you can put over it, it looks like almost identical to that.
I know.
Shape, dimension, etc. Doesn't have the little O-ring, and then it's threaded in the back so you could manipulate weight if you wanted. But like the length and everything, like it's almost that component.
Yeah.
It's super close.
Full titanium.
So, yeah, full titanium, and the collar's removable. So if you want to use a collar or not, you can.
Yeah. Yep.
So you still get that durability, and not exaggerating, there's a massive benefit to this going over the end of your arrow.
100%.
Something hard. You're especially lighter arrows, you'll break it. It'll go right.
Well,
over.
and the cool thing here too is, your arrow's coming up like halfway up that collar.
Yeah.
So it's bridging that gap, or the kind of bridging the gap from the front of your arrow to strengthening it to the post.
Right.
So I mean, I think that is a huge advantage in durability.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, that was mule deer. How about?
I spoiled it on elk already. I think that's
Well, how about what animal would you hunt that would make you want to use something different?
I think if you're going to Africa, some of those obviously. I mean, they have weight requirements there too. I mean,
well, for good reason.
Yeah, and I've heard of guys that are, literally bonding multiple arrows together by getting a skinnier arrow and sleeve, like making their own homemade renditions on different YouTube videos to get these extremely heavy builds.
Yeah.
That I think they require. Do you know what the weight requirement is for like a cape?
I know there's a kinetic energy requirement.
Okay.
So it's or at least there was, and I've built several things for different people over the years. I had a guy going to Africa that was doing a management elephant hunt.
Oh, cool.
And it was the first time I'd built FMJ dangerous games for somebody. And he had, oh, hello, Chloe. She wet?
No.
She might have been running around outside.
She did.
It required, I'm trying to remember what the overall weight was, but The first time that Ashby head had come out, the 300 grain single bevel, 3 inches long, 1 inch wide.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All steel, and built them on 250 dangerous games with 75 grain inserts. Actually, the guy had his shoulder hurt at the time. I actually had to tune his bow and sight it in for him. But by the time he was leaving, it was going to be okay. Actually tuned very well, and he got a complete pass-through on that elephant.
That's incredible.
Yeah, like I'd never heard of that before. So yeah, there's definitely a need for excessively heavy stuff, but I mean, we got to be talking about Cape buffalo, elephants, things like that.
Yeah,
I mean, where do you draw the line?
I think if I were going to go hunt moose, and I actually may, a friend of mine invited me. He's got some property in Newfoundland. Invited me and my dad next year.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, super cool guy, and just very giving, and offered us to go up there. So I don't know. I'll have to really kind of think that over of what I would shoot, but I very well may try the FMJ Max, the new FMJ Max, and put a little more weight up front, like kind of like we talked about. Probably hit that high 400s, overall target weight, and I mean, with a shorter bow, especially, I even with a shorter draw, I mean, I should still be able to shoot that in the 280s.
Oh yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at the newer versions of the Hoyts, because I know you guys are like real close by.
Yeah.
And they've got some real good performance stuff
For my draw,
their SDs, the shorter draw lengths.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first year that they've made a shorter cam that goes on the other bows.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Right, instead of a bow that's got a shorter cam system and base on it, you can put them on. And ironically, Matthews and Hoyt did the same thing this year. They both made a shorter draw length option.
A lot of short bow hunters, man.
That you can still get like a heavy weight on. Right, traditionally when you would find a short draw length bow, you couldn't get a really heavy limb on it.
Yeah.
You can get some legit weight behind it. But yeah, an RX9 and Alpha AX2 29.5, both are available with the SD.
Okay.
Short draw wheel. I haven't seen an SD yet. I haven't ordered, so I haven't been able to test it, but it's supposed to be significantly faster to shorter draw length. So you're going to generate more energy with a similar effort to draw it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've liked the draw, so I have an 8 right now, RX8, and it draws nice. Yeah. Draws super smooth. I mean, at 70 pounds, it genuinely doesn't feel like I'm pulling 70.
Oh, no, and you will feel like you're pulling 70 now. Like the new cam system.
It is a little, it's a little more
It's got a little more hump in the front, but like the RX9 that I tested, it's the fastest bow I tested this year.
Okay.
And it isn't hard, right? It's not like, oh my God, this feels terrible, like some faster bows have been put out.
What's your average, like, I mean, what is your, depending on the bow you shoot, just on a given year, how fast are you typically hitting?
Over 300 period.
Like over 310?
Yeah, I've been in probably the 310 to 325 range on a lot of things that I've built, and I've gone excessively higher than that. My cousin back in the day kind of started me going down this rabbit hole because he came over from rifles and always shot a light, fast bullet, always, and really did well with it. So he wanted to push how light and fast you could.
Was he hunting? Was he hunting? He was a big hunter too.
Oh yeah, he was He's killed an elk every year for the last 37 years, and he's 47. Like he started when he was 10.
Wow, that's impressive.
He's never not killed an elk every year.
Wish I could say that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it took me 4.5 years to kill my first elk of trying.
It's not. I mean, elk hunting, man. Like,
it's a different thing.
Especially DIY, public land. I mean, just as soon as you think you've got it figured out and you've pinned this bull down, somebody else shows up, screws up what you're doing, or you screw it up, or whatever. It's frustrating, but I think that challenge is what gets the right personality just back to do it. Got to try it again. I mean, I always say the reason elk hunting is only once a year is because it takes you 11 months to forget about how sucky it was,
That's right.
before you go out again.
That's right. Well, there's so much effort that goes into success in those realms, right? And it can be just devastating at times when it doesn't.
Well, and sometimes you watch these YouTube videos and it's like, holy cow, it was so easy for that guy, and then you remember a thing called editing.
Yeah, like all the screw ups and whatnot. It's amazing how many guys that put videos out in that realm do not want to show their screw ups, do not want to show their failures, and I have a lot of respect for people in that space that show it to you all. They show you screwing up, show you failing, show you never being able to get your bow drawn. Right, I mean, like that's what it really is, and you don't want to leave an unrealistic expectation. I mean, I go back to like Primos in their elk hunting videos, right? It just looked like it was so easy,
Oh yeah.
Like everything you saw made it look like it was really easy, and that is so not realistic.
I'm trying to remember my brother and I back when when you had to go to the movie rental place to rent a movie.
Yeah.
Was it Muley Madness? I think it was Muley Madness.
Yeah, I remember that one.
We rented and then we would put them on like our own VHS copies, right?
Yeah,
like in the basement. My parents wouldn't know we were like.
Remember they had like the two that were one unit, you stuck them both in there and hit the button and it copied it.
Yeah, and it ruined me, man, as a kid. We'd go hunt public land. I'm like, well, that video we just watched, they're shooting 240-inch bucks.
Right.
We'd go out there and...
where are all the 240-inch deer?
Yeah, I passed a lot of deer for a few years, man, as a new hunter, just because I'd watched too many videos of big deer getting shot. Yeah. It was like Arizona Strip stuff, Sonora,
crazy stuff. That back then was pretty cheap compared to now too. To go do those things, it's wild. How much more expensive all that's gotten.
Yeah, it's all been commercialized, right?
I watched so many hunt videos. My dad, so we had a video rental at the sporting goods store that we had.
Oh, cool.
And so we had like 800 hunting videos.
Was it just hunting videos?
Just hunting videos.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then he.
That's a good thing I wasn't local, man. I'd have been in there. My brother and I, we'd been going to town.
Well, he did the same thing too. I mean, he had the videos and he paid somebody to make copies of them or something. Like paid an employee to sit down and copy all of them and print out little labels that had the description of what they were on. So we had like 50 or 75 at home too. But once I started going down there, I was like, I'm taking this one this weekend. And there was always a couple that were always out too, like really popular.
Now your dad was a trad shooter, right?
Yeah. He started with.
He started before compounds hunting, I presume, or no?
No, I think he started hunting when compounds existed, and he actually did hunt with a compound at first.
Yeah.
But his goal was always to be a good traditional guy, and he spent, oh God, I gotta think, probably the better part of 40 years, because I don't remember him hunting with a compound. There were pictures of it, but I don't remember it, and I'm 45. So yeah, I don't think he ever actually during my life memory, like which I'm trying to remember, like before like 7 or 6 years old, right? I don't remember him using a compound. I only remember the one time I remember him. There were 2 times he had a compound. One was when we'd sit in here and shoot and for score against each other.
Awesome.
And I was shooting a compound, he was shooting a recurve, and I was like destroying him. And so the next day I came home from school. He was started with a longbow. The next day I came home from school. He's got a recurve out. All right, let's go. Start shooting, and I destroyed him. And then the next day he had a compound.
Oh, there
and
you go.
I still beat him, and he didn't want to play anymore. But he was horrifically competitive like that. And then
now what was your dad's arrow philosophy? Like, did he like?
He was lighter, actually.
He liked light. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
He did, and it didn't always work out. There were times where he ran into issues, but he was always a real big advocate, and it's the same philosophy I have now. Is that it's all about the broadhead.
Yeah.
It's how sharp is it? What kind of angle is it at? He always used, 2-blade broadheads, elongated, super sharp. Like if you couldn't shave hair clean off your arm, you did not hunt with it.
Now those a lot of times like actually kind of work like a collar does today. Wouldn't they actually kind of cover the end of the arrow a bit as well?
Yeah, there was a lot of that in that. Well, like your true traditional, if you were using a cedar, like it went straight inside the broadhead and glued over the top of it. And then they started doing. I think it was CDM Flight Mate, if I remember right, back when carbon arrows were super small diameter and protruded and straight. They made a bunch of adapters where the arrow went inside the adapter and you glued a broadhead onto that.
Yeah.
So the inside of that arrow was inside of that broadhead.
Wow. Yeah.
You couldn't break it. Like it was a super solid system. So you look at some of these things that we're still not fully incorporated today, and they existed 20, 30 years ago, right? And it's like, come on. Just step a couple steps forward and you're going to run into something that can't fail. But the problem with those systems is the consumer has to accept that I can't have field points on my broadhead arrows, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're gluing it together. But I think we're there. I really do. I think we're to the point that the consumer just wants what's going to hold up the best.
What's the most exciting thing for you as you look at like, I don't know, new product this year or new product in the last 5 years? I mean, what are... aside from the new 5.0, of course, because that takes the cake. But what's got you most excited?
Honestly, I'd probably relate it back to bows more than anything. I'm super excited that manufacturers appear to be trying to make their bows more versatilely tunable for the consumer.
without the need for a press,
Without
things
the need
like that.
for a
Yeah.
press to be able to adjust your timing and your wheeling. And what that's signaling to everybody, including the basic shops that don't really understand what they're doing, is it's forcing them to realize that's how you're supposed to tune your bow. So for a long time, shops that probably weren't as techy or maybe weren't shooting great distances or things like that, just slap your stuff on, move your rest left to right, or don't even shoot it through paper and put some tools on it, and set it and say, here you go, and leave it at that point. And if it doesn't fly good, put a mechanical broadhead on it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's it. Well, that's a massive loss of energy. And just because you don't see it in broadhead flight doesn't mean it's not doing this to the target and bleeding energy as it goes. And when you get that, you get arrows that are hitting the animal with 30% of the energy it should have, because it's flying like crap.
Sure.
Which is why I'm always, even if you're going to shoot a mechanical, shoot a fixed blade broadhead, make sure it flies good. If that doesn't fly good, you've got a problem. Or if you're going to shoot a mechanical, shaft tune that bow.
Well, we've all been at the range and you're watching your buddy shoot and you can like see his
You
arrow
can see his arrow
blade,
whipping.
like, whoa,
Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah.
you just scrub some speed. I mean, I'm a
lot.
dirt biker, right? I love dirt biking. If you watch Supercross, you see that like air scrub.
Yeah, that air scrub.
Right,
For sure.
to burn
Yeah.
off speed in the air so you don't overshoot the jump. Like
Yep.
every time I see someone's arrow, like
Who wants
scrub out like
your
that.
arrow doing that? That's
Yeah,
terrible.
it's really cool on a dirt bike.
It looks
you
cool.
know, but
it looks cool, but
you
not
don't want
cool
that
on
on your
an
arrow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild, man. So yeah, there's definitely a need and a place for excessively heavy, but it's not in the majority of hunting. It's really
No, I agree with you, and I mean I started out hunting with a 40-pound bow and a 600 spine arrow that were probably cut to 22 inches, right? And
Yep.
the bows were much less efficient, and I was shooting through elk
right.
at 40, 50 yards.
What kind of broadhead were you using?
Yeah, an 85 grain broadhead. I mean,
Right.
so I think I always go back to confidence. I mean, that's like my go-to. But I think if you're confident about what you've got, to me, some of the information out there should help you get confidence and maybe help you find your own identity in what arrow belief you have and what and what brand bow or sight that you choose to. If you're confident in it, I mean that's the product for you.
Right.
You know?
So this is a little different way to showcase a new arrow, I guess.
Yeah.
This is really more of just a casual conversation. It's a couple of guys sharing philosophies, but I will throw a little caveat in here. Check out these new 5.0 arrows in the new FMJ. What are they called? Sorry,
The 5mm FMJ Max.
FMJ Max. It's more the weight of a standard axis. If you're a standard axis guy and you really like that arrow and you like that weight, I would be shocked if it didn't penetrate better. But this is me beating up Tyson for years about this to actually make an arrow in this weight realm. And it wasn't a matter of not wanting to. It had to be right, and it had to be in the processes that make Easton a superior product.
Had to be right, had to be in the U.S.
And
had to be
in the US.
AccuCarbon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and the way theirs works, which I hope to go down there and actually video and show you their process, because it's wild. Nobody does it, only they do it. It's very unique to them, and they have so many things that they can say for their company and what they do that is solid and positive. But give these arrows a try. Check them out at your local shop, because they should have them. They're coming in December-ish, right?
Yeah.
They're starting to ship in December. And if your local shop isn't carrying this, ask them why, because this is going to be... I want to see this arrow pass the axis. He doesn't believe it's going to happen. I really do think over like the next 3 years, eventually it'll overtake the overall volume of it, because there's so many advantages to being able to use a slightly lighter GPI arrow and putting the weight in the front instead, and still end up at the same arrow weight. I'm not saying use a lighter arrow. I'm saying use a more efficient arrow.
yeah,
And that's the reality.
And there's been those options in the marketplace, and I think they've done well.
Yeah,
right.
they've
So
done really well.
What the 5.0 is it hits those weights, and it does it with a process. Is here in the U.S. It's AccuCarbon, so it's seamless. You don't have stiff high parts of the spine. You're gonna have an arrow that shoots much more consistent every time. And I've said it a couple of times, but it's done with U.S. labor. It's done in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we take a lot of pride in that.
So in layman's terms, you don't need to knock tune your arrow, because there's no seam in it, quote unquote. Oh man.
That does look pretty sharp. I'm liking
Right?
that. I'm liking that color, man.
So.
And just the decal. I mean, I'm biased, but man, that looks clean.
It's very sexy.
Gary does such a nice job
Did a
with
very
our
good
decals.
job with those, yeah.
Like I think I'm excited to see him. We might even make an LED sign with the 5.0 logo.
That'd be sweet.
Like the Easton 5.0, like you've probably seen we do with our
Yeah.
6.5 series.
Yeah.
We do one with the Sonic. We've done it with the FMJ and Axis. So we'd get something like that. Send out to some of the shops. I think it's a cool way to showcase something new.
I actually need to hit you up on some decorative type stuff like that for the new shop in Nashville.
Oh yeah, we'll get her dressed
yeah,
up. Absolutely.
We're putting that up. Well, probably by the time we talk about this, it'll be up and running. So.
Hey, better yet.
Head on over to podiumarcher.com if you're looking for stuff online, but only if you're going to buy online. Please go buy at your shop. Go to your local store. Go to your pro shop. Take care of those people. You need them. They need you. I don't want your money for that. I only want your money if you're going to buy it online, period. Use coupon code MFJJ to save you a little money. And thanks for watching. Hopefully this wasn't too boring.
Thanks, guys.